Hello and welcome. I'm Sofiko and this is Creative Minds Speaking, a podcast where I have conversations with creative industry professionals, bringing into the spotlight those incredible people who are behind the scenes of art and entertainment is the main goal of this podcast. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are the personal views of the guests only and do not represent in any way the views of their companies. This is an exploration of the guest's journey and views only. On today's episode, I'm going to chat with Michelle Golden. Michelle spent the last 3 years at The Orchard as a senior brand marketing manager. She has a vast experience in the music industry, and I can't wait to hear her story. Hi, Michelle. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm super happy to have you on the show today.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So I checked your LinkedIn, of course, and I saw that your journey actually started in the music industry started in 2012 at Universal Music Group, and then 2 years later you left it from for Berklee, if I understand it correctly. So could you please tell us, first of all, why you decided to work in the music industry? Um, how was your experience working for a major label? And why you decided to leave that job for a master's degree at Berkeley?
My career in music actually started in 2010 when I was in college. I think I was an incoming junior and I was looking for a summer internship. And I was very much, I went to Emerson College in Boston and majored in writing, literature, and publishing. And I was looking for a ton of magazine internships. And one of them was OK Magazine, which you probably don't know OK Magazine. It was a very celebrity focused gossip magazine, and I had applied to be a beauty intern. That really meant working on like the editorial side, but within the beauty vertical and organizing the beauty closet. But the beauty director at the time, Michelle Edgar, she actually was the founder and executive director of a nonprofit called Music Unites. And Music Unites was an organization based in New York that provided music education opportunities to students in inner city schools. Um, very much focused in New York, and eventually over the years, it expanded to LA. So for 4 years, I actually worked, and also throughout my time at Universal, but worked under Michelle's guidance, leadership. She took me under her wing. She was definitely a mentor and really taught me so much about the music business. And here was this person who was such a go getter. And I hadn't spent so much time in New York. But in this internship, I was like, oh my God, I love New York. And I really got to see her in her day job at OK Magazine. And then at night, at Music Unites, just really hustling and working hard to build a nonprofit. But she was making connections with so many artists and record labels and brands. And I knew that I wanted to use my skill as writing to be a stronger marketer. And that's, really through that nonprofit, I met someone else who was working at Island Def Jam and Republic. And from there started interviewing for a job in sales at Universal Music Group, um, which was really funny because sales and Michelle Golden don't really mix. Numbers and Michelle Golden don't really mix. But I was able to really convince my future at the time bosses, that I would be an excellent fit, that I could learn Nielsen SoundScan, that I could use Excel. Immediately went to go buy like Excel for Dummies. um, and
That's the way
that
to go.
yeah, and I got the job. And that meant being an assistant to the SVPs of digital and physical sales at Island Def Jam and Republic Records. At the time, the sales department worked the two labels.
Mm-hmm.
And so the sales department was really responsible for selling the music, like putting the music in physical stores and Targets and Walmarts and of course on then Amazon, and streaming was very much in its beginning phases, and so convincing people the power of streaming. Um, so that's kind of a long-winded answer to your
Mm-hmm.
question, but that's how I got into music, and that's how I got to Universal. Eventually, being an assistant, it's very hard. I respect everyone who is an assistant, who is a coordinator, because you are trying to make it, and you are trying to make your bosses notice you and other people on your floor notice you. And I think I burnt myself out. But I also knew that I wanted to learn more about music, the business side, economics, finance, law, copyright. I wanted to learn all these things that I hadn't spent time in college learning about. I was in writing workshops and writing creative stories and journalism articles, which is great. But in this new music business world that I was like suddenly a part of, I wanted to learn more of the ins and outs of the business. And a little bit of Googling, and I found out about Berkeley Valencia. And I became like totally in love with the program. I studied the website every single night. I read about the application process and the experience producing a TEDx event. And I knew like the program director before I even interviewed with him. And I basically stalked Berkeley Valencia online because I was like, this is a magical 1 year program in Valencia, Spain, and I applied. I interviewed and I got in. And I remember getting in and I was just like, wow, I'm going to Spain. Like that's such a it was such a weird thing for me to say because at the time I was living in Hell's Kitchen in New York and I was an assistant and like how do I tell my bosses who I love, but how do I give up on this opportunity? I can't. I have to go take it.
That's so interesting. So you're saying that you decided to do the master's degree because you felt that there is some knowledge that you still don't have? Because some people think that you can learn a lot of stuff through an actual job, right? And you had this actual job, but from what I understood, it wasn't enough, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was an incredible opportunity to be able to work at Island F Jam Republic and to be able to I mean, I literally met Rihanna at her Best Buy signing and like was a part of that event. Like I met Ariana Grande upstairs on the 8th floor Republic in New York, and I took a picture of her and then Austin Mahone at the holiday party. And like yeah, it was amazing, and I loved it, and I had, a lot of friends at the company, and I really learned a lot about myself and about being an assistant, and but the thing is I didn't know what I wanted next in music. I didn't know if I wanted to stay in sales, but I didn't know what else kinda was out there,
Mm-hmm.
and looking back on things, sometimes I did think, a few years later, like what would have happened if I had stayed in my position as an assistant and then worked my way up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to start around the same time, the department I was working at dissolved. Like it wasn't like, unfortunately, um, my bosses were eventually like let go. The department kind of fell apart, and it was really difficult to witness that. And I had never been through something like that. Like I had never
Mm-hmm.
seen something that you were a part of just change so drastically like that in terms of work. So maybe I would have gone to one of the other labels. Who knows? I don't know. But I think, every choice you make kind of leads you down this path and leads you to another path and another path. And honestly, like I wouldn't be where I am today without that first job
Mm-hmm.
at Universal. And I definitely would not be where I am today without Berkeley.
Got it. And have you ever thought of working for a major label again, or you decided that it's maybe not your thing?
I don't know. I think I am about um, really new, innovative, creative companies and record labels for sure have definitely grown with the times and producing some really great music out there. But I don't know, like maybe. But I think right now I'm in the point in my career where I want to incorporate music. I love music. I'm so attached to music. I want to incorporate music into other verticals as well. So whether that be working with more with brands and seeing how to incorporate music and artists and through those kind of impactful partnerships or working across tech and health, like, just thinking about this new incoming role, like, the role really will, um, work on the communication side of, like, a marketing agency that works across different verticals. So it doesn't just touch music, it also touches um, other interests and passions of mine. So, I don't know, at this point, like, no, I'm not gonna go back to a major label, but who knows? Anything can happen.
Definitely, definitely. Just was curious about it. So let's talk about your time at the Orchard. For the past 3 years, you were a senior brand marketing manager. So let's talk about that. Can you maybe tell us what that role is about, what this position is about? What were your main responsibilities at the company?
So I met Scott Cohen, one of the co-founders of the Orchard, when I was at Berklee. And when I say that who I am today, I have Berklee to thank for so many reasons. Literally, I do. Like every single I think every single job since Berkeley, like, I've been connected in some way to the school. So, anyway, Scott, I met, he came to speak to Berkeley Valencia actually several times. He hung out with us, like, he was just so awesome, and also, I just kept following the Orchard ever since then and learning about the company, learning about the founding story, and where it was going, and I was in a position, um, at the time, I was at the Clive Davis Institute recording music, and I was in events and working with students, and I really realized that as much as I love that, and that's truly one of my passions, like, I really wanted to kinda get back into, like, purely the business side of music, compared to, like, working on the educational side. And so, anyway, so I applied to this job at the Orchard and I kept in contact with Scott and let him know that I was applying and eventually got it. And honestly, that the past 3 years have incredibly changed my life. I have only amazing things to say about the Orchard, and in all transparency, like I'm no longer there because I chose to take another leap and kind of pivot and see where this next chapter may take me in my career. But as on the brand marketing team, like we worked across the 45 different territories, different markets that the Orchard is in, including, Russia, Italy, Spain, um, various offices across the US. And the team was really responsible for elevating the brand awareness of the Orchard, building brand awareness across the 45 territories through speaking events, award submissions, PR, social media, website, online platforms, etc. And the team grew definitely since I started. And our team really was meant to tell the Orchard story.
That's so cool. You mentioned that your team was working with 45 markets, right?
Mhm.
Were you responsible for certain markets? Did you have a certain territories that you were responsible for, or?
No, our team worked across there was only one brand marketing team for the
Mm-hmm.
Orchard, and that consisted of, team of maybe turned into I think five. And we worked with the different team leads across the various markets. But there wasn't like a brand marketing team in Russia and a brand marketing team in Italy. It was our team kind of bringing everyone together. So
Hmm.
if people wanted to take part in this conference at Reeperbahn or at South by, our team was the one that really helped facilitate that. That was just one of many things our team was responsible for.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Really like the B2B brand look and feel of the orchard and continuing to elevate the story and the growth of the orchard through the different platforms.
But does this role include working with a lot of music, or it was mostly working on the brand of the company?
That's very interesting that you bring that up, because like not a lot of people realize that. But yes, it was really working on the brand side of the company. We were definitely listening to the music. We were definitely promoting the music, but it was all through the Orchard's channels. So when I say channels, like social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. That was just, one aspect of the role was pushing out new artist releases and updates through those social channels. And that's how we were connected to the music. And obviously, telling the Orchard story, the Orchard being a music driven company. But I wasn't working with the labels
Mm-hmm.
directly. I was working with the label managers who work with the labels.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't working directly with the labels and I wasn't working directly with the artists on a day to day basis. There
Mm-hmm.
were definitely a lot of opportunities where we could um, present to artists. Like when we were all in the office, we had an in office performance series called The Orchard Presents. And artists would come in one at a time. They'd come in and perform a few songs and tell the story behind their songs. So that was a really cool opportunity to be able to work with them. We interviewed a ton of artists for the Daily Rhyme blog, the Orchards industry blog, and interviewed a ton of artists. And I really used like my journalism background and writing background and my love for music to be like, hey, here's this cool artist in France. Like, would they be interested in interviewing with the Orchard for the Daily Rhymes? And that was an opportunity to merge those two passions. But it was very much focused on the brand side.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for saying all this. You, again, about the 45 markets that you mentioned. When working with so many different countries, have you ever felt a different working approach and maybe cultural difference when working with different markets? Um, what was maybe the most difficult thing for you? Or maybe it was just quite easy with everything?
That's a really interesting question too, because of course there are different um there are cultural differences across markets. And also when you're always speaking to these people virtually, and not even necessarily Google Hangout, but a lot of times like email or GChat, like um, you don't know that person personally and that person doesn't know you personally. So you kind of have to be mindful, but over time you build relationships with so many different people. And I think that that's what really made the Orchard super special is their global presence and how people literally work in all corners of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn a lot about different cultures through the music that they release as well, and through the different opportunities that we had to learn from the various teams.
It feels like you had a bunch of responsibilities, a lot of work. How did you maintain work and life balance? And have you ever felt burnt out at your job?
Right. Um, yes, I feel like I press the gas pedal and I don't take my foot off the gas pedal for a really, really long time until I get to the point where I realize I am beyond the point of burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happened at every single job I've had. And I think a lot of that has to do with me not taking off time. And a lot of people feel like they can't take off time just because like we have to work all the time. That's like the mentality I feel like I've always been a part of, which is not true. And people need to take off time. And even this past week, I haven't really done much other than like work out and cook and do laundry, but it feels good to kind of recenter and like be able to start fresh. But yeah, I think that what I've realized over at least the past year with COVID as well, I recently moved back home and I started working out more. 3 times a week, I do really intense, high intensity interval training 3 times a week around 7 in the morning. And that really, really pushes me and actually helps me during the day to be a better version of myself. And I also realize that if I don't work out, I get all crappy. And then I realize I just needed to move my body and feel better. So I think like that really helped me. And I also, recently started thinking about mental health as well. And so
Mm-hmm.
started seeing a therapist on like an every 2 week basis who gives me some like she's more like I consider her like a life coach, kind of, a friend that you don't know at all, but gives you unbiased opinions. um, and it's actually it's been helpful because sometimes I get so much into my head that I can't think about what it is that I truly want because sometimes I'm afraid of what other people may think.
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess, recently with deciding to make a new career change, like, am I leaving too soon? Like, should I stay? Like, do I really want to leave? And I think, being able to talk through some things and taking time to reset and really figure out, like, it provides you an opportunity to figure out what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I recommend taking that time while you're in a job to, take the time off because we do only have one life and life is super short. And if anything, the past year has taught us is that family and friends is so important, and that those moments with loved ones are very, very precious. And it's not all about work.
Definitely. This is such a great advice. Thank you. You're starting a new job soon. How do you feel about it?
I feel good. Again, I've been able to take this time to reset. But I'm going in and starting a new job remotely during what still is a pandemic. So of course there's a lot of like the unknown, but I am excited because it's a new company that is really doing some cool, exciting things, really merging like creative and data. And I'm excited to just learn a lot, soak in as much as I can. In this role, it'll be very similar to a lot of the previous communications and brand marketing work I was doing before, really building the story of the company. And it'll be interesting to learn about that story and to be able to grow with this new growing company. So a lot of excitement. Also, a lot of unknown because
Mm-hmm.
that's always the case when you're starting something new. But I'm super grateful for everything that's happened until this moment, and I'm excited to see where things will go.
I'm so excited for you as well. Maybe later we can record another podcast and you can tell us more about your new job. What would you say are your life highlights?
Life highlights.
Yes.
Okay, that is a loaded question. I mean, I'm looking at a picture right now of my dad and my sister when my sister got married. And those are my two life highlights. Family, my fiance John, who we have not killed each other yet, working from home over a year. But he is so passionate about the work he's doing, and his he works a day job and he has a side hustle that's really a business, and it's been super inspiring to watch him teach himself a ton. And my best friend, who I've known literally since middle school, when since middle school when we were very little and silly about what the future would hold, she in the past few years decided to go freelance, having worked at big companies like the Huffington Post and MTV and the New York Times, and being able to see her kind of take on new projects and choose the type of projects that she wants to be a part of has been super inspiring as well. Because again, like you can't identify, like, who are you if you didn't work at all? Like you can't um have your job identify who you are, or like
Mm-hmm.
you can't just be your job. You have to be someone else outside of the work that you're doing. And I think, like, I don't know, watching her and watching John kind of put in a lot of work and um hone in on their skills, they're able to kind of pursue their passions as well, even if it is part of the work that they're doing to
Mm-hmm.
get paid.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
so nice. It's so important to have a support of your family and friends.
Yeah.
And how would you define success for yourself?
I think when I was younger, actually not even when I was younger, but even now, sometimes I think, like, you see other people and you see how success can be linear. You start as an assistant and then you go to coordinator and manager and senior manager, and you're at the same company, and before you know it, 10 years has passed. When you look at my LinkedIn, you look at my resume, I've been at several companies, and several companies since Berklee. And sometimes I think, like, wow, should I have stayed there or should I have stayed there? But honestly, like, success is about trying new things and really enjoying the work that you're doing and knowing your worth, taking a stand, and also taking an opportunity that's sometimes unknown and new, and you don't really know what's on the other side, but you're kind of just listening to your gut, and listening to your heart. And I honestly think that that's what success is. Success is trying new things. It's about putting yourself out there, wearing your heart on your sleeve, and not being afraid to kind of take a leap. Success, when I look at success too, and like other people, sometimes you want to compare yourself to other people, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think part of that is letting go of that kind of comparison and just being truly who you are. And honestly, like, Berklee, Universal, Music Unites before, my writing internships at the very beginning of my career, and, Superfly and The Orchard, the Clive Davis Institute before that, like, all of these were such incredible chapters. I was able to hone in on skills that I was really strong in, learn new skills, challenge myself, try new things. And, like, I mean, I said challenge myself, but truly, 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 like, challenge myself beyond what I thought was possible. And, like, that's success.
This is so sweet. This is so inspiring what you just said, really. Thank you. And um, do you have any book, movie, and song recommendations for our listeners? It can be about music, it can be just something in general.
Mhm. So I was listening on repeat, driving in my car, because I do that now. Machine Gun Kelly, which is like not my typical artist, and I think maybe the first song I've ever heard from Machine Gun Kelly. It's called Love Race, featuring Travis Barker and Kellen Quinn. And it just makes you want to, like, be in a mosh pit. So yeah, so that one. And then also, I think you say Kid Kid Larobi, and Miley Cyrus did a remix of his song.
Mm-hmm.
And that came out today, and I've been listening to those two songs on repeat.
Okay,
Um,
I'll check it out.
yeah. And then of course The Weeknd and Ariana Grande with what is it, Save Your Tears?
Save your tears, yeah.
Yeah. That one's is so good. I'm a huge Ari fan.
I'm so happy you met her.
That was a long time ago, yeah. Um, in terms of books, um, Books. I do read a lot of books, and a really good one. Okay, so a really good one that I think is relevant to this conversation is called Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Um, she talks about like being a cheetah and like everyone should be this cheetah. And like I don't think of myself as a cheetah, this like fierce person that's like not afraid of doing whatever she wants to do, but like reading the book, I've all of a sudden felt like this cheetah. So it's a very
But
like
you
I
really
wouldn't
sound like somebody who is not afraid of the new challenge and all that. So,
I mean, you're not afraid necessarily, but there are always like voices in your head that are kind of telling you
yeah,
otherwise, you know?
yeah.
So I think that book was, it's also a really quick read, but I think that book is always good for someone who's like questioning things,
Mm-hmm.
questioning decisions, just going with it. And in terms of a movie, I actually just watched A Promising Young Woman, and I highly, highly, highly recommend watching it. It's incredible.
Thank you. Um, who would you say is your celebrity crush?
Celebrity crush. I mean, the first person that comes to mind is Zac Efron. So Zac Efron, but honestly, it would probably be Miley Cyrus, Rihanna,
Mm-hmm.
and Beyonce and Taylor Swift. I can't pick between the four, but like all of them in the room, like I
Oh
wouldn't even
my
know what to
god.
say. Like
This
that
would be
star
the most
power,
powerful room in the world.
right? And I sure hope I get to meet Taylor Swift and Miley Cyrus and Beyonce one day. Like, and Rihanna, I can say like I have seen her. I have touched her hands. Like I received an album signed by her from her,
Which one?
the one with the diamonds, Unapologetic,
Mm-hmm.
2012. Hmm. The song Diamonds was on that album. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the last question that I like to end the conversation with is, who would you say inspires you the
I
most?
think I already said it though. Like my family and my best friend and my fiance, like honestly, the fact that they are on a, like they're not afraid to just take risks and to try new things and to teach themselves new skills and use time outside of work to do all of that. Like those honestly, like those are like the role models in my life. But also like every single previous boss I've had, they've all taught me something different about myself, about working, about being a manager, about just being a team player. And each of them really had such like an influential, important, huge impact in my life. And I swear, like I will stay in their lives forever. Like I will make sure to be knocking on their doors and texting them and checking in just because like they're now family,
Mm-hmm.
and very, close friends, and I've learned so much from them and have a lot to be thankful for. Um so yeah, so those would all be previous mentors, current mentors, role models, people who I look up to generally to become like a better version of myself.
That's such a beautiful answer. Thank you so much, Michelle, for this conversation. Thank you for your time. You're a very inspiring person. I'm so happy we had this chat and I got to know you better. I'm wishing you best of luck with the new job. I'm 100% sure that you're going to be amazing in it. So, best of luck. I hope you will have a great experience there and talk soon.
Oh, well, thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this, and I'm just excited to see where things go with you. And we've got Berklee linked. So we've got that Berklee connection, Berklee Valencia, and I'm always here.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.